Welcome, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming your way to review the motion picture that took, I don't know what, nearly 40 years to come out. I'm not exactly sure when the production began. I think online I saw 2023. I think it might not have come out until this year, 2025. But at any rate, if it didn't take 40 years, it took nearly 40 years to come out. Stopping on by to review the motion picture by the name of The Mutilator 2. Of course, being a fan of slasher films, I've known about The Mutilator for quite some time. I don't know when The Mutilator first entered my life, maybe the early 2000s when I was buying a lot of Video Update was purging their VHSs, and as I've said bazillion times on this channel, they had a deal at some point where you could get like 20 tapes for $10, so I bought a lot of horror VHS and things, and that might have been the first time in the early 2000s I would have seen The Mutilator, and then of course it ended up coming out like 10 years ago or so on Blu-ray, and a wonderful Blu-ray version by Arrow Video, and I'm pretty sure either the commentary or interviews on that Arrow Video release of The Mutilator, Buddy Cooper, the director, director of the first film, The Mutilator, talked about wanting to do a sequel. And of course, just like with, the guys who made Mad Men talking about a sequel or a remake to Mad Men, that never ended up materializing, or at least not that I know of. I didn't expect the sequel to The Mutilator to ever materialize, cut to like a decade later. And lo and behold, it has materialized, for better or worse. Kind of more worse in my opinion, but there's some good about it. I'll get into that obviously in this review, but the Mutilator 2 is kind of interesting in that it's like it's a strange, maybe Kevin Williamson attempt at or kind of is this called meta? I'm not exactly sure what the terminology for this movie is, but instead of being a sequel to the first film, it's like it's really strange in that it's like it takes place in the world of reality, and basically before I even start the review and tell you what it's about, I should say that how I saw this was it was on Prime Video. You could either rent or buy it on Prime Video, so I'm not sure if you could see it, or at least at the time I saw it, which was like November-ish or something of 2025. I'm not sure if it was available anywhere but Prime Video, so I saw it on Prime Video. That's how I saw it. And right off the bat, of course I saw the trailer years ago or whatever. I don't know if it would have been 1 or 2 or more years ago. I saw the trailer, wasn't very impressed with it. But, and so one thing I wanted to say is right off the bat, when you start the movie, The Mutilator 2 just comes on, and then just almost like a Mario Paint kind of a graphic, and then the blood kind of, and just this, really kind of Mario Paint blood kind of comes down from the end of the hook. The hook makes a 2, just like the teaser poster for In a Violent Nature 2, although that does it better than it does in this, poster / opening title sequence, where just Mario Paint blood comes off the hook of the tip of the tip of the hook of the tip. So the premise of this movie is basically it's really strange how they talk about they're remaking The Mutilator, but at the same time, they're calling it Mutilator 2 in the movie. So I don't understand it. Are they calling the remake of The Mutilator 2? I don't get it. But from what I understand, they're remaking The Mutilator in this movie, and they're just finishing up, the production at the movie's start, and then they have the whole rest of the movie basically takes place the night of the wrap party, which is, I don't know, the next night or that night of I don't know when the wrap party is compared to when, they finish filming or whatever, I guess, remake of The Mutilator, which is called The Mutilator 2, which makes no sense. And from what it looks like, it's the exact same kind of location the first one took place, maybe the exact same location. I think they show like the garage and the condo or whatever of the house that was in the first film, but I don't think we film in any of it or anything. And then, of course, if you've seen enough of my videos, well, I don't talk about it a lot, but if you've seen some of my videos where I bitch about it, of course, there's a drone. I'm not a big fan of drone photography being. There's this one movie, I can't remember what it was called, that I ripped apart. Something I reviewed years ago called, I don't know, The Last Summer or something. Was it The Last Summer, possibly, where it seemed like every other fucking shot was just an unneeded drone shot of the top of the trees. And it's just like, just because you can get footage from up high doesn't mean you have to get footage from up high. Arguably, the use of the drone footage in this movie, I think, was a much better use than Last Summer, if that's what it's called, where it's just, we're kind of showing the tops of the trees for no reason, whereas the drone shot that's used, and I think there's only possibly maybe one, maybe two, but there might be max 2 drone shots in this movie, maybe it's just one, but one thing I will say about the drone shot in this movie is it kind of establishes where we are in location to the original location. Like, there's the original condo at the beach location from the first film, and then the drone shot goes up and shows the whatever it is, the ocean or whatever in the pier, and then kind of goes around this way to see like the hotel over there, which is right in proximity to the condo at the beach. And that's where the whole, this whole movie takes place, at the hotel location and on the beach and the pier and stuff. So, one thing I can say about the drone shot in this movie is at least it's kind of, I don't know why we maybe don't even need to necessarily know that it's by the, supposed location of the first film or whatever. But, and one thing that's really, there's some couple of sloppy edits, sloppy cuts in this movie. The cut of the drone, it's like the shot that goes into the drone shot is really sloppy, and it's on the ground, and you've got the 2 actors from the first film like revisiting the condo at the beach location, and they back up and it's the woman from the first film and her husband or whatever, and they back up and go to pull away, and then like as the car's pulling away, you can start to see the camera go up, and there's like go up, and there's like some kind of sloppy dissolve or something. Maybe they dissolve from a non-drone shot into a drone shot. But there's a couple, sloppy cuts. Another one is one of the kills, the double kill on the pier, dock thing or whatever. But the whole premise of this movie is basically we just finished filming the remake of the Mutilator, which we're calling Mutilator 2, and the whole movie is basically the wrap party. Just like the first film, it's a relatively short movie. It's like 80-something minutes or whatever, all said and done, with closing credits and stuff. So at least it's got that going for it. It's not like frickin' the movie I reviewed, shot on video, SVHS movie I reviewed, Hung Jury, where it's like better part of almost 2 hours long. At least like it's got not a whole hell of a lot to say, and at least it's short instead of almost 2 hours long or whatever. But I was really, really surprised at the beginning how like the movie just went kind of into the gutter, the dumpster, with this like humorous bit. It should be said that I don't know if I said, but this movie I think is written, I don't know if it's written in, but probably written and directed by, of course, Buddy Cooper, who did the first Mutilator. So and right off the bat, very early on, it goes into this kind of gutter, dumpster area where it's almost a joke you'd find in an adult film back when they had plots. I don't know if they got plots anymore. I don't watch adult films anymore or whatever, because I don't know. You don't need to know, but in the old days, if you rented an adult film, a VHS tape from the video stores, they'd like have like a lot of them would try to have a plot, which was kind of interesting or whatever. But it was very off-putting, like the joke early on in this movie, where you got this, I don't know if it was some producer on the Mutilator 2, the remake that's happening inside the film that you're watching, which is Mutilator 2. And this just kind of nasty, I don't know if it's like, Harvey Weinstein, dig or something, but this guy goes to this girl who's making like a fake head, because it's a slasher horror film and stuff, so she's, this quote-unquote hot chick is making a fake head, and this sleazy guy comes in. He's like, I'm paraphrasing. If you want to get, move up in the company quickly, there's ways to do that. Cut to long, to make a long story not as long. He goes into this. He's basically expecting for some kind of sexual service, and which involves her head in something that's located on her head, which is her mouth. So all of a sudden, this is pretty early on in the movie. I'm like, God, what? Why is this movie doing this? It's just kind of like we're just gonna. So then it looks like he goes into this place and this room, I don't know some kind of drapery that hangs in the doorway, and he's supposed to stick his thing through there, and then she goes and gets the severed head she was working on, and she puts it up there, and we're supposed to assume that, he puts his thing through the curtain, and, luckily we don't see anything. And the guy's like, oh, baby. So she's putting this fake head for for a gore scene, the decapitation scene, on him, and the guy's going, oh, so it's just like joke. But what and I could live with that. But the thing that's really gay. So this whole review is going to be just me bitching about this joke. I'll try to make it quick, but I could almost live with that if they just left it alone. But the thing that's kind of lame about this whole joke is that apparently, like, she put glue or cement in the mouth of the severed, fake, head or whatever. So basically this thing gets affixed to the guy's groin, and it's like this running gag for, I don't know if it's on his groin for the rest of the movie, at least for like the next 30 minutes, goes into the next day. I think they said something about 24 or 48 hours the glue will wear off or whatever. And so basically the next day this head, is on this guy's groin, and he's got a trench coat to try to cover it up or whatever, or a Fall Break poster. The original title of the first Mutilator was Fall Break, so it must be like an authentic Fall Break poster possibly that Buddy Cooper had or whatever. But this running gag of like, okay, this pervert, he gets he gets what's coming to him. He got a fake severed head glued to his groin, and it's just like, that was just a really weird way to like start the movie. And it should be said that whereas the first film admittedly was really low budget and stuff, and it showed and stuff, but one thing about the first Mutilator is that, like, for my money, a lot of the characters and stuff, the main guy and of course the girl and the redhead guy, and I guess majority of the characters, they go out to the condo at the beach for a fall break, and it's like the characters, in my opinion, of the first film are kind of more or less entertaining and fun to hang out with and stuff. And my complaint about this movie, surprise, 2025, the characters are just shit. There are no, they have no character. They're annoying, and sure, like, that the hot chick that put the severed head on the guy's groin or whatever is hot and stuff, I suppose. But I mean, like, just the dialogue that we're supposed to sit through, some of the dialogue scenes early in the first half of the film, and it's just like, so like the characters aren't interesting, the performers aren't necessarily engaging, the dialogue isn't necessarily that great. You can tell that, Buddy Cooper's trying to do kind of like it reminds me of like Kevin Williamson early Scream kind of a stuff, which, I don't have a problem with that. Like, when I saw the trailer years ago or whatever for this, I was like, it could be kind of interesting, but alas, not necessarily. It isn't necessarily. So the first half of this movie is really, really, really kind of hard to get through, and there is a kill early on. And one thing I will say about this movie is, and it ends up being kind of, the second half is much more enjoyable because there's more kills. But when the first kill happened, I'm like, oh, okay, because the first Mutilator is of course well known for being so low budget, but still being able to carry off some really kind of gnarly and really nasty kind of kills and stuff, except for that one in the pool, which they, I guess, pulling the woman, under the water because the makeup effect they had planned for that didn't work out or whatever. But a lot of the Mutilator is of course the first film known for being this gore fest, of a really interesting way to dispatch people. And one thing I will say about the Mutilator too, given all of its faults, especially the second half, is when the kills start really piling up. Like, even though this is like just Z grade, probably even less budget than the first film, like it is very much like, how George Romero always had an interesting to do, as he made zombie movies, and then he went on to do stuff like the found footage zombie movie and some of those other zombie movies. Like, he always had an interesting way to have like a zombie or do a zombie gag or something. Like the kills in this movie, which, of course permeate the most of the second half, are the most interesting thing about this movie. And I was actually kind of, halfway into it, I was just like, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But then when the kills in the second half, the kills started ramping up, and I found like each one to be relatively interesting. And the funny thing is, with the second half of this movie, is it reminded me very, very much of Return to Sleepaway Camp. And one thing I didn't comment on is it's only got, this movie, as far as I know, only has two of the actors from the first film. The main chick, a weekend of R&R at the beach, or whatever she says, the main girl from the virgin girl from the first Mutilator, and the redheaded kind of comedic guy. I think from what I understand, are the only two performers, actor and actress, from the first film. And then what's interesting is, as far as I know, so it's very interesting, and an interesting turn of events, they have none other than, I can't of course remember his name right now, but Dr. Cruz from Friday the 13th Part 7, Bernie from Weekend at Bernie's, Terry Kaiser, I want to say, as the actor. He's in this movie portraying the actor who played the killer, aka the guy's dad in the first Mutilator. And I was just like, that's insane. That, that Terry, I think it's Terry Kaiser or something like that, but Bernie from the Weekend at Bernie's films and Dr. Cruz from Friday 7 is in this movie. Like, he's the only like actor that is actually like an established actor, and it's interesting seeing like him in this really Z-grade movie. Of course, I think he's been in Friday the 13th fan films and stuff, so at this stage of his life he just kind of takes anything he can get or whatever. But a really interesting, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to do in the movie, but interesting to see him in the movie. But what I was saying was, the last half of it, when the kills start to ramp up, the killer is dressed exactly like the killer in Return to Sleepaway Camp, where it's like this, hooded sweatshirt with the hood up, and, just whatever. You can see like the old wrinkly hands, so you kind of have an idea who it is. I'm not going to spoil who the killer is, whatever. Possibly, maybe uninspired killer. I don't know. Maybe it's maybe it's the right killer for the movie, whatever. But you'll have to see it to see, or look online to see, look elsewhere to see who the killer actually is in this movie. But yeah, I'm like, as the second half, went on and like the kills ramped up, I'm like, yeah, this reminds me of Return to Sleepaway Camp. And I don't know which movie. I don't know which movie's better. I think I like, I think the kills in this maybe are a little more interesting and stuff, and some of the stuff they do. But as a movie as a whole, this is how bad this movie is. I want to say that I might like Return to Sleepaway Camp as a movie, as a whole, more than the Mutilator 2. Although I think that, but I've lived with Return to Sleepaway Camp for much longer time, so this movie's like fresh. But the kills in this, might rival some of the kills in Return to Sleepaway Camp. But at least Return to Sleepaway Camp was shot on film, whereas this, of course, is, digital or whatever. But and before I end the review, another thing I'll say is, like, one thing that was kind of nice about this film, when I was trying to think back to the first one, the Mutilator, I'm like, yeah, there was female toplessness, I think, in the pool or whatever. I don't think she necessarily, had too much going on up top or whatever, but I think there was technically female toplessness in the first Mutilator. One thing that was kind of interesting and surprising about this is that, unlike, so many mainstream horror movies these days, this movie, if you're into this kind of stuff, had actually three sets of bosoms. What do I call? I think I call them bosoms. 3 sets of nude topless bosoms, and I think all 3 sets are natural. So that was like appreciated. Like, wow, in 2025 horror movie, you don't really expect bosoms, but one thing I will give it to this movie is like, wow, you got some bosoms, and a kind of a sex scene or foreplay scene that, and the kill that that may or may not happen during the foreplay, sex scene or whatever. Yeah, that was cool. That was when that kill was like where I really went, like kind of woke up, because I wasn't sleeping, but almost, at that point in the movie. I'm like, okay, that kill is on the same nasty, level as some of the kills, one in particular in the first Mutilator film. So when that kill happened during that, makeout scene or sex scene or whatever, foreplay scene, I'm like, okay, Buddy Cooper still got it, at least in those regards, So and one of the kills involves, well, maybe not even so much of a kill. Some chick is tied up to the pier, and she's got like a rope on her, and it was really kind of interesting. So many of the kills in this reminded me of like Return to Sleepaway Camp. It's so insane, and of course the killer, just with the the hooded sweatshirt with the hood up, the black hooded sweatshirt with the hood up and stuff, just like right out of Return to Sleepaway Camp, like the most uninspired killer get up you could really think of. But this one chick's tied to the pier or something, and the guy's on the dock or whatever see her, and she's got a rope tied to her, and it's on the dock, and they're like, two guys are like trying to pull her up, and she's like her face is getting, as she's being pulled up, her face is getting scraped against the pier, like all the barnacle or the whatever the hell, the ocean stuff that's on the pier. So her face, they're pulling her up trying to save her, and they're scraping her face on this stuff as they're pulling her up. So by the time she gets up to the top, her face is half scraped off. And I was like, and I don't even know if, unlike, well, there's not a whole lot, but there's some CG, tinkering with some of the gore effects on Return to Sleepaway Camp. I don't know if there's any, well, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. But anyway, the when she's like, gets to the top with half of her face gone, I was like, that was okay. I don't know if that was a kill. I don't know if she's dead or still alive or whatever, but I'm like, yeah, that's when the kills were really starting to, be impressive. So, the last half of this is at least like the kills are kind of worth hanging out. Maybe not worth experiencing the first half of this for, but at least the kills kind of redeem this whole experience. And one thing in closing before I end the review, I will say that for being a Z-grade low-budget movie sequel to the Z-grade low-budget first film of the 80s, is like the whole thing. Well, not the whole thing, but the majority of it takes place at night or whatever during the rap party, and the hotel area and the pier and the beach and stuff, and like the nighttime moonlight. Nighttime cinematography or video. I mean, at this point, you can call it videography. Was relatively confident with the moonlight and stuff and this and that and stuff. Some of the scenes, playing it back in my mind now, is just like, God, yeah, it's just amateur city, and it's just like, it's really hard to kind of get through the first half, I will say. And, but, for the most part, as I said, stuff on the beach and the pier at night and stuff, they got the moonlight and stuff lit relatively well and stuff. So yeah, I think that's pretty much my take on the Mutilator 2. It's an exercise in what the hell we doing. I don't know what, and one thing at the end of the day I will say is thumbs up to Buddy Cooper for, unlike the guys who made the first Madman, who were in talks to like make a remake. It seems like there was other low-budget horror movies from the 70s or the 80s, and I've have since got special Blu-ray editions with commentaries or interviews where they talk about interest in like a remake or a sequel or something. So Buddy Cooper, hats off to him for at least frickin' doing it, And the first half I was ready to say, God, it's almost, it'd be better to not exist. But by the time the gore really, kind of the kills start piling up in the second half, I'm like, okay, well this if nothing else, the movie is a good reason to exist, just for the, I guess, the kind of creative Buddy Cooper kills and things. So what would my star rating for the Mutilator 2 be? Oh my God, even with like the God, is some scenes that are so sloppy too, just like I was just thinking of the red-haired guy from the first film, you know, he wants to see his death from the first film, and he's like got this guy to cue it up on the computer, and then when you see the TV, you can see like the Blu-ray player, like the, you know, BD-ROM thing, and it's just like, well, that's not from the computer, that's obviously from a Blu-ray player, and it's just like, you know, how would he have queued it up on the computer? And it's just like, so yeah, a lot of this stuff, like I say, playing some of these scenes back in my head, very kind of Kevin Williamson-ish, like Buddy Cooper was trying to invoke like Kevin Williamson or something when he was doing this or whatever. But interesting idea for a sequel, you know, have it take place, you know, that way you can see like the redheaded guy from the first film again, and you know, he was fun, and seeing the you know, the original virgin girl from the first film, like seeing those two actors from the first film, or actor and actress I should say, was cool. Neither of them have a very big parts, and I can't even remember how, like, what ends up happening to the virginal girl from the first movie, the woman. I can't even remember some of the last stuff we've seen with her or whatever. But in closing, once again, like the end credits are interesting, and that Buddy Cooper puts his own flair on it, where it's like some of the, you know, there'll be the typical words, and then, you know, an image comes up, and then when you can see the full image, it'll be an you know, full motion video that's going up with the credits, you know, and like the people who, the performers and stuff, or the victims or whatever, they'll like do some goofy thing and take a bow, and then it'll freeze again and go up out of screen, and then later on another one, you know, then they'll do whatever and take a bow like that. I don't know if it's all the victims or what it is, but yeah, several, like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 separate little video clips of, you know, some of the performers, you know, that take a bow and stuff during the closing credits, and that was kind of interesting. Like, oh wow, you know, the closing the closing credits are more creative than the first half of the movie. But yeah, was I trying to figure out a star rating for this? This is difficult, man. Even with like the positives and, like, you know, the second half being a lot easier to watch than the first half and stuff, I gotta tell you, it's more or less the disappointment. Not that I was really expecting anything per se, but I can't reasonably go any more than 1 star out of 4 stars for The Mutilator 2. I can't in good conscience go any higher than that, just because the first half is so abysmal in my opinion, you know. And yeah, it's just a really strange kind of sequel. And you know, the only thing, if the whole movie had been like the first half, it would have been like, you know, frickin' 0 stars. But at least the second half has like some, you know, 3 sets of bosoms, you know, really kind of cool Buddy Cooper, you know, kills and stuff. Same thing, you know, a lot of them are on the beach/pier area and stuff, so that's really cool and stuff. So yeah, I can't necessarily say I recommend The Mutilator 2, and I'm pretty sure it's on, like, if you go to Blu-ray.com, it looks like it is on Blu-ray, and, you know, it's not something that I can ever imagine needing to own on Blu-ray unless it's like find it somewhere for $3 or $5 or something. But as I said, the first half, man, holy cow, and second half manages to save it or whatever. And as I said, definitely the second half, when you're seeing that hooded sweatshirt killer, you know, doing stuff in that, it's just like, oh wow, I've just got Return to Sleepaway Camp flashbacks here going on. But anyway, I guess I'm just saying the same thing over and over. So I guess that'll pretty much do it for my review of The Mutilator 2. Can't exactly recommend it, but, you know, as I said, you know, hats off for Buddy Cooper for making it happen, man. That was quite a feat. So feel free to let me know. No one really says anything in the comments anymore, but if you want to, feel free. And if you've seen it, feel free to let me know what you think of The Mutilator 2. And I guess that pretty much does it for my review. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And as always, we'll catch you on the next video.